and welcome to CDKx Live. Today's topic is Art of Generational Wealth. So this is going to be an interesting one. Yesterday I was having a listen in a room on Clubhouse, and they were talking all about the art market and its current volatility. They were talking about a lot of different topics, but there was one thing in particular that came up which I found to be really, really fascinating. And that was Nirmalya Kumar, who is an avid art collector and a professor of marketing at Aditya Birla Indian Centre of London Business School. I just read that for the first time, so my mistake if I mispronounced any of it. But he was bringing up such fascinating conversation, and he actually sent over an article that he has written that I will be quoting in a moment here. And he was basically talking about how he's very cautious whenever people or artists, galleries, what have you, market themselves as selling art as an appreciating asset, something for people to invest in as an asset. And he went into this article and he was not holding back any stops, which I thought was interesting. But what I want to focus on was what he was talking about after he was explaining why art as an asset is something to be cautious of, because he breaks it down in financial terms. So I go ahead and say in financial theory terms, this means that art, and you'll have to read the article to be able to get the full understanding. And I will make sure with his permission that there's a link to that in the comments. But he says in financial theory terms, this means that art as an art index is dominated by other asset classes in a portfolio that seeks to maximize returns and minimize variance. So there's all kinds of things that he goes into talking about the correlation with equities and negative correlations with bonds and treasury bills. Wow, that was like a little bit of a tongue twister. Regardless, I thought that it was fascinating to take a listen to him as well as to be able to read how he really breaks it down in the article. Now, if art isn't an asset which appreciates, then why do people invest in art? And people definitely do invest in art for a lot of different reasons. Now, one of the really prevalent reasons that Nirmalya was talking about, which I found to be fascinating, was that especially in wealthier countries, specifically with wealthier families, which I already knew this, people will invest in art to be able to sort of extend the generational wealth of a family. And what was being talked about was the taxations and investigations for it as an asset are not as strict as other things in a financial portfolio. So that was interesting. And then some other people were chiming in and saying that that's not true, that the auditors definitely do take a look. But I don't think that that was the point of what was being said. The point was that is a more prevalent reason why people do invest in art than for it being an appreciating asset in and of itself. Now that's in the physical. And if you know me, you know I'm the NFT queen of LinkedIn. So digital assets, actually, there are ways to trade them just instantaneously like we do with, stocks, like with the actual market, these new marketplaces for non-fungible tokens. Yes, it's emerging, but it does change the conversation. I have had collectors message me that they have collected my artwork before I even knew who they were. It was that instantaneous. I put it out onto the platform and they made the purchase. It transferred immediately to their wallet. So this conversation is changing. But as an artist who works in Renaissance mediums and who is very traditional in my physical artwork creation, that's a really fascinating conversation for me to listen in on and for me to be able to learn from. And I'm beginning to start asking questions. So one question that Nirmalya writes about in the article is, why collect art despite knowing all of the above, which again is what he listed out in the article, which I highly recommend that you take a moment to read because it definitely has helped me understand. But he says the answer is that unlike other investment products such as bonds and equities, art is also a consumer product. One gets aesthetic pleasure from a painting and from being the custodian of the artist's genius. So this is definitely true. When people invest in my artwork, they're investing in it because it curates a space. It brings them an energy. It shows color and light through frequency. And because I am a Renaissance artist, that's a real thing. Like, I study how to be able to curate that through a piece of art. And so investing in it for that reason absolutely makes sense. It's just that the piece of art itself isn't necessarily going to appreciate on its own over time, unless we're talking about a digital asset that was purchased out on the blockchain as an NFT, which my artwork will appreciate as Ethereum goes up. So that's a whole other conversation to be involved in, but it is quite interesting. Now, I love the attitude that is brought in this article. He's like, buy it if you like, but consider, would you still love it if the value is halved? And the beautiful thing about my work is that I know people would, but we were having a conversation about how the artists' prices might go down even in their lifetime. And is that something that's like an irreparable harm for an artist? And I'm not going to focus on that too much, but basically the consideration that was most spoken about in the conversation, and where I agree as well, is that if they were being marketed right, if the gallery was doing their job right, if the agent was doing their job right, and as long as they were educated in doing it, the artist will never have to lower the prices because they wouldn't have been too high to begin with. So it's really important as an artist to be an entrepreneur. And this is something that it's like entrepreneur is a buzzword and all is, taken in to completely mainstream ways. Like the words become buzzwords. But the point being, I am equally a businesswoman as I am an artist. And that's saying something because my artwork is my life. My artwork is my method of creation. But business itself is an art. So being able to make sure that as an artist, I am always taken care of. It's really about being able to move and change with what the art market is, reflecting, as well as staying true to the art. So it's very, very interesting thing to balance, because what we don't want to do is sacrifice the intrinsic value of art creation. The part of it being highbrow is that it was created for the sake of being created. Art was created for the sake of creating art. That's what classifies it as highbrow work. And the moment that it becomes a commodity and we are just paying attention solely to consumer trends and solely to what people in the art market are buying, it can very quickly become kitsch and lowbrow and no longer has that level of valuation that it once may have had. So it's a very interesting balance. And the most successful artists, and the thing that I have been dedicating my career to since very early on in research, is how do you balance the two? How can we marry the two of those things? And so through my execution, that's what I've been working to do. And I think I do a very good job at that. I have my gallery of work that has all of my physical and digital asset class items, pieces that are very much going to be at a high valuation. And then I also have my shop, which has merchandise and books and coloring books, and people can buy a design with limitless amounts of designs. I have hundreds and hundreds of works that I am slowly and surely strategically putting out. And there's time. There's artwork that I have right now that I've created over the past couple of years that goes in the vault. And it's about the strategy about how we put it out. Being mindful and not being rash, being brazen, but being cautious. So Emily, you said, love your point about marketing and being an entrepreneur. It's such a necessity. Like, the artist of tomorrow is going to have to learn how to really paint with business in a way that never has been done before. And that's like a take on a Van Gogh quote, which is the artist of the future will be able to paint with color in a way that never has been done before. And now we're talking about business, like art entrepreneurship. This is good news, though. A lot of the times artists are just like, I just want to create. I see it as good news because we have never been in a better position to create. We really have never been in a better position. We're beginning to have autonomy in ways that we never have had it before. So thank you for taking a listen. And I'm curious to know, what do you think about the contemporary art market? What do you think about investing in art? What do you think about using art as a way to continue generational wealth? Because that's the topic of conversation today. That's something that my art buyers and my collectors do consider very much whenever they buy artwork. And especially custom artwork pieces, people want to have art that's going to live on forever, and it's going to be something that's like sentimental and real to them. And as an artist, I really, really enjoy those kinds of pieces. Not everyone does. It's to each their own. But I'm grateful to you for joining in on this conversation, and make sure that in principle you think before you buy art as an investment. I always am going to encourage people to be cautious, but you should buy my art. I'm just going to throw that in there. It's something that no matter the valuation with my work specifically, you're going to be brought joy. And it is here as a way of healing. It was created in my healing, and it heals others. That is a humbling statement to say. I'm not saying that, I'm not just pulling that out from my sleeve. Like, that's something people tell me, and I'm humbled. And it's real. And we can pass that along generationally. And that is a wealth of abundance and healing, and it's so much more. Artistically too. It's really beautiful to look at. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for tuning in.